Nigeria's trade surplus in 2012 expanded to 16.8 trillion from 9.5 trillion in 2011. To discuss the implications of data released by the National Bureau of Statistics, I'm joined on the line by Dr. Ayo Teriba. He's the CEO of Economic Associates, and he joins us to share a few thoughts on the numbers released. Dr. Teriba, it's great to have you on the show, and quite a few things stand out there. The imports figures are down about 43%, 6 trillion rather. Exports are up 15.5%. Your thoughts on these numbers? Are you surprised with what we're seeing in the data released?
Well, the export figures look a bit on the high side, and compared with the figures that the central bank eventually releases, there has been a tendency for the initial data releases by the Bureau of Statistics to exaggerate the export picture.
Okay, so it seems some data integrity issues in your view here.
Oh, well, it's preliminary. The reality may not be that rosy. And import figures look rather low compared with 10 trillion in 2011, dropping to less than 6 trillion also shows that the import figures may be understated. Okay,
but if we take all this in context, even if the import figures are understated or the export figures are overstated, there is a sense that we probably still end up with a trade surplus last year. And I want to get your thoughts on what that means for the Naira.
Oh, well, Nigeria always record a trade surplus as far as visible trade is concerned.
Right.
Because you haven't added services, Nigeria always record a service trade deficit. So you should anticipate something like 7 trillion deficit on services, both on commercial services like shipping and aviation, and income, expatriate income out of Nigeria is much larger than what Nigerians abroad earn. So the story is usually not in the visible trade balance. It's in the overall current account balance.
And if we look at the overall current balance,
a cushion of 16 trillion is large enough to absorb the whatever you anticipate to be the deficit is going to come in on the service side. So I do think the picture puts Nigeria in a comfortable trade situation.
And how do you see that filtering through into the strength of the Naira this year? We've seen it pretty resilient, still within the central bank target band this year, at least so far. So your thoughts on where it's going from here?
Oh, well, Naira value depends more on pressure on the capital account, not on pressure on the trade account.
Right.
Although whatever surplus you carry from the current account is what you're going to use to absorb, the pressure from the capital account. The good news on the capital account side is the return of stability to the international capital markets. I don't think Nigeria is going to experience any of the excess foreign exchange demand shocks that we've been seeing in the last couple of years.
So we're still in a good place, at least. You seem to...
I do think the outlook of the Naira is very stable.
All right, but let's move back to the trade data. And of course, we know a big part of the transformation agenda of the government is to diversify Nigeria's export base. And from what you're seeing in that data, are you encouraged by anything at all?
Well, yes. It's good performance on the non-oil export side. You have a commodity like rubber, earning Nigeria nearly as much as natural gas. That's good news. But it's good news coming more from the favorable global non-oil commodity prices.
Right.
Which I also expect is sustainable, into the medium term.
And on the import side, some may suggest that with the import levels, I know you're saying that they're a bit exaggerated, but some will suggest that... Understated. But some will suggest that it could be because of the probe into the import of refined petroleum products, that may have been a factor as well. So are you encouraged from the import trends as well?
Oh, well, the imported petroleum products still stood at about 1.7 trillion as in the previous year. So I'm not sure that anything has changed on that front.
Okay, but what about the rest, the other data we're seeing for other items? Of course, Nigeria has gained a reputation of importing everything. Like one will say, even toothpicks get imported into this country. So your thoughts on the trends we're seeing in that respect?
Well, import of 6 trillion naira is on the low side. We have to wait for the revised figures. If the revised figures, confirm that import indeed fell from 10 trillion in 2011 to 6 trillion or less in 2012, it's worth, cheering.
All right. I think a final point for me would be moving back to the issue of diversifying this economy. Of course, a big part of what the government is trying to do is to drive agriculture. And I want to get your thoughts on the whole transformation that we're seeing in that respect. A lot of people saying that the value chain still needs some work, but at least we're on the right path right now.
Right. The global environment at the moment offers very strong incentives for non-oil exports. The prices are favorable, and the government too has complemented that by subsidizing credit, to the agri sector. I think it's the right way to go. The government should get more involved in terms of supporting the agri sector, particularly the export sector, and Nigeria should be the happier for it.
Is there anything, though, as we try to wrap now, is there anything with how the economy is currently working, currently constructed, that worries you going forward? Because there is that broad optimism about where Nigeria is on the macro side right now. But many people would say if oil prices go south, Nigeria could be in some trouble.
Well, the Nigerian production and export situation is heavily dependent on global prices. Currently, the global environment is favorable. As long as it is favorable, Nigeria will benefit, on the non-oil side, particularly crops. If prices collapse on the international scene, there's very little Nigeria can do. We are vulnerable. That's the reality.